Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is going to be a very special edition of my top 5 series. I was waiting on releasing this video until either myself or one of my clients hit a 500-pound squat. A 500-pound squat is kind of on that same level as like a 350 bench, probably around the same as the 600 deadlift, in the sense that a 500-pound squat is extremely hard to achieve for the vast majority of people, especially if you're taking one to competition standard and you weigh anything south of like 275. In honor of one of my clients, Mr. Ethan, completing a 500-pound squat.
Come on, baby! Come on, baby! Let's go, Ethan! Let's go, baby! Come on, baby! Get up!
This is going to be my top 5 exercises to improving the squat. The most important thing for gaining strength on your squat is to squat. Unlike the deadlift and the bench press, which can be somewhat lackluster developmental movements, the squat is the king of all exercises, and it will build everything that you need to improve your squat in most cases. So essentially all these exercises are going to be some variation of a squat. When I say to improve your squat, I'm assuming it's a competition low bar setup, either bare knee or with knee sleeves and then with a belt, because this is how I believe most people in the gym are squatting and the standard that I believe most people should hold themselves to. My number one exercise for increasing your low bar squat is going to be a high bar squat. So a lot of you out there who are watching this video struggling with the squat, you probably have very long legs. And what that means is that when you squat, you're generally going to lean more into using your posterior chain because it's going to be stronger just by the mechanics of moving around every day and the fact that your low bar squat probably turns a little bit into a squat morning. So you're going to be lacking in the leg department. And the high bar squat just shifts the emphasis of the movement more to the anterior chain, so your quads and your core, which is going to be the area that you're most likely going to be lacking if you have any time in the gym as a long-legged lifter. Now, even for people who do not have long legs, this is going to be an excellent choice, just based on the fact that it's going to be easier on the joints of the upper body, and also because it's going to artificially lower the amount of weight that you can use. So it's going to be a little bit less strenuous on your recovery. And most of all, it is going to be accessible. If you have a straight bar with plates like you would for a regular low bar competition squat, you can do this exercise. Even though I'm a big fan of taking off the knee sleeves and doing a little bit higher reps with this in more of a bodybuilding type rep range compared to a low bar squat, it is still a fantastic strength movement if you do decide to push it into a lower rep range. Now, following suit for much the same reason is the SSB squat. Now, the SSB squat may actually be even more effective than the high bar squat because of the demands that it places on your spinal erectors and your upper back. But this exercise loses a lot of points because the only way you can perform an SSB squat is to have an SSB. It does have a very unique strength curve and stress that it places on the body compared to any other exercise or any other squat variation with a normal kind of bar. But the likelihood that you just at, a Defined Fitness or an Anytime Fitness, the likelihood that you have access to an SSB is pretty low, but just by the potential of how much it can grow you, it's going to have to get a spot on this list. So number 3 is going to be a tie, we'll say, or a toss-up of personal preference between the Bulgarian split squat and walking lunges. Now, I don't believe that single leg stuff is super necessary for short-term growth. So in that like 3 months or less range, do you really need single leg stuff? Not really. But in the long term, it's going to be extremely helpful for injury prevention and for overall hypertrophic development in your legs to be even. And also the core demands and the balance demands that you get from these two exercises can certainly help, because something people struggle with a lot in the squat is remaining balanced. And a great way to target that is by doing one leg at a time. Now, number 4 is going to be some kind of heavy hip hinge. So you can either put RDLs or good mornings into this category. Now, this is going to be for you guys who have better squat builds, so generally longer torso and shorter legs, because in much the same way that long legs favor the posterior chain, having short legs favors the anterior chain, so your quads. So you're gonna need something to bring up the backside of your body. And in general, I find the posterior chain is underdeveloped in most people, even people who are more built to have a stronger posterior chain, i.e. myself, simply because you use the front side of your body more often in day-to-day life, just, you know, walking around and going upstairs, that kind of thing. And also because a lot of people come from bodybuilding backgrounds where having big quads is really cool and you can see them in the mirror really easily, but it's pretty hard to see big adductors, big hamstrings, big glutes, and also it's not something that's really that cool. You can't really flex on someone with saying you have big ass. So the likelihood that you are underdeveloped in your posterior chain is really high, and that's why RDLs and good mornings are going to go in this spot. All right, and then number 5, this is going to be somewhat of a curveball for you guys, and that is hanging leg raises. Now, why is this random ab exercise so important for squat development? In the short term, probably even under 1 year type time frame, it's not really that big of a difference. But the hanging leg raise has a few benefits that I find to be pretty important. So one, it trains the hip flexors, which is a muscle that's usually pretty underdeveloped and is the antagonist to the glutes. So in order to have hip symmetry, particularly in the squat where you have deep ranges of motion for the glutes and the adductors, you are going to have to develop some kind of hip flexor strength. It doesn't need to be anything incredible, but in order to prevent hip pain, having some kind of strength and mobility in the hip flexors is important, and hanging leg raises train that better than most exercises. 2, you also have the ab strengthening this, which is not super important because I find that squats generally develop the core strength to perform the movement, but it certainly doesn't hurt. And 3, and this might be the most important one, is that it helps to decompress your spine in a way that is very hard to replicate with other exercises. Obviously, squats and deadlift compress your spine, so you can almost think of it like a spring. You're going like this until one of your vertebrae or the discs in between them eventually gets an injury from all the compression and never having any decompression, which is where hanging leg raises come in, because an ounce of hanging leg raises does a great amount to prevent a lot of the compression-based injuries that you may run into. And number 4, it's the easiest exercise to include. It doesn't take a lot of energy. You can basically superset it with any accessory, and it'll essentially be an active rest. And so you get all of these benefits with virtually no energy cost. And that's why I love hanging leg raises. All of my clients, you're going to see hanging leg raises in your program just by virtue of the fact that it helps with injury prevention and it doesn't cost any energy. And having a six-pack doesn't hurt. That's going to be my top 5 list. Shout out to Mr. Ethan Montoya, as congratulations for his 500-pound squat at 16 years old and weighing 165 pounds. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.